I'm David Lough, president of the association. Welcome, everybody. Special guests today. First thing I guess I need to do is establish a forum. We certainly have that. And could I ask those on Zoom who aren't going to be speaking to mute, please, so we don't pick up any background noise. I see, as far as a quorum, I see Alan Friedman on Zoom. I see Roger Berry, and I believe Kathy. Kathy is on. And so have we got everything? I think we have
10 out of 10.
Yes. 10 out of 10. Okay, quorum is declared, folks. Next, Jane. Approval of the minutes. Are there any comments on those?
I'll just make sure we got them and you guys don't have any changes.
Move as written.
Second. By consensus, anybody have a concern? Nope, adopted. Okay, thank you. And Clark, could you quickly give us our treasurer's report?
Yeah, the stable palm balance as of this afternoon is $20,111.36.
Good. Well, over 20,000.
Yeah,
for a
we
party
hit the big time.
Okay.
We'll be a party that's much bigger.
Okay. So without further ado, Chief Rex Troche, welcome on behalf of DSCA. We know you're amongst the busiest people in town. You brought with two Sarasota's finest, and we appreciate their participation too. Interim Chief Troche began his career in the police department, as I understand, in 2002. He served in all 4 divisions. So here's a fellow who knows every side of police work in Sarasota. He was promoted to sergeant in 2013, lieutenant in 2017. And he has a number of degrees, including a master's degree in emergency management from St. Louis University. He was appointed to captain in 2020. One thing, sir, not on your bio is I think you spend a fair amount of time at the gym.
Yes,
sir. So that's not on your bio, but it's pretty obvious. With this said, I've asked Rex to make some introductory remarks. He knows from meeting with members of his staff that some of the key interests of downtown are, noise, whether it be amplified or vehicular, and also the vagrancy and homelessness matter. So our organization would like to think of itself as representing about 12,000 people in the greater downtown, which is roughly 20% of the whole city. So without further ado, we can make some remarks, and then we'll likely have some questions from the board for you, sir.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you for having all of us here. Just a quick history note. I was in this building when it was first being built, and I think I worked an off-duty detail here for 12 hours, making sure it was secure because I don't think they could lock the doors. We had to handcuff them at night because of builders coming in, contractors coming in and out. I am from the city of Chicago. I grew up in the city of Chicago. My father was one of the first Puerto Rican police officers to be hired in 1962 by Chicago Police Department under O.W. Wilson, who was a commissioner at that time. So I grew up in the inner city to the point where when I would go to school, my father would have to pick up my clothes to make sure that they were not gang colors, Latin Kings, Gaylords, things of that nature I had to deal with. I was either getting chased by them, to get beat in or beat up by a new member that they were bringing in. So my whole life, I've had to run from some things. And then what that taught me was how to use my words, because over there, you have to learn how to speak or you're not getting out of it. Unfortunately, when I was 11, my brother was brutally murdered in Chicago, actually in Rockford, Illinois. So once that happened, it changed my whole family dynamic. And then my parents were pretty much, we need to get you out of here. This is not a good place for you anymore. So about 2 years later, my dad retired after 24 years. Usually the magic number is 25 years, but he felt it was time for us to get out of there. So came down to St. Pete, grew up in South St. Pete from the age of 14 on. So it was an interesting dynamic because here in the city of Chicago, I grew up in the United Nations. In my opinion, my friends were Jewish, Yugoslavian, Polish, Italian, Puerto Ricans, Dominican. So to me, a broad palette of colors was normal for me, right? I would go to these bat mitzvahs and I would go to these special Yugoslavian celebrations, and that was normal for me. So to come down to South St. Pete was a bit of a culture shock because in South St. Pete, you're either black or you're white. That was really what it boiled down to. Thankfully, I went to Lakewood High School, which you had it was almost 50-50 black to white, but the people there were beautiful. The students just got along. They all grew up together. So it was an interesting dynamic there. And then I went to University of South Florida, got my undergrad, and later got my graduate degree from St. Leo University. My father really tried to talk me out of law enforcement. He didn't feel it was safe for me, but I had an older brother, the middle brother. He became a Chicago police officer. When I was 20, he took me on a ride along and threw me in the back seat of an unmarked car. He worked in an area called Humboldt Park. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Chicago. And so right out the gate, him and his partner took this kid, threw him against a car. I mean, went through his pockets, threw him in the back seat with me. I had no clue what was going on. He's crying, I'm crying. I mean, it was bad. And then they subsequently let him go. And then the next stop, they picked up a gentleman who was trying to pick up a prostitute, and they rolled up, and it was a deer in the headlights. They put her in the car. She had her molars just recently pulled, so she had like this big wad of gauze everywhere, and it was just so I came back and I decided I did not want to. I made that decision because I didn't like the way my brother necessarily was doing law enforcement. That's not what was me. That wasn't my intrinsic motivation. So later on in college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I realized that even though my brother was on America's Most Wanted, not because he was wanted, but because he was catching bad guys, that it was not the type of police officer I wanted to be. So I determined at that point that I can be my own person and I can bring my own ideas to the table. That's my personality, because when it comes from inside, right, then it's real and it's genuine. So we think that's very important. So got my master's degree, and like David said, I've rose through the ranks. I've done everything here. And I want to make a point of that because I did foot patrol here. I did work downtown, and there's a lot of pride that goes. And, you know, Mr. Vermillion's over there. He's a former Sarasota police officer and did a great job with us, by the way.
Thank you.
And I mean that. And so I had a pride walking downtown, because if someone was victimized downtown, I took it personally, because I wanted families and I wanted tourists to come down here and feel safe downtown. I wanted them to know they can enjoy themselves and not live in fear. So that has been a big point of contention throughout my whole career, is to protect downtown, to protect St. Armand's, places like that, really interesting, cool places. And I say that, and I worked in Newtown as well, and my heart breaks in Newtown because it has so much potential. But there are some challenges with the socio and economic challenges that, you know, when you're poor and you don't have money, then that breeds crime, because you're going to go for the quick buck. So it's very important that we all continue to support Newtown, and I think we are. I think it is starting to get better. I think we've reached out to Newtown because we've all been here for a long time. We've been able to leverage that with our relationships with the Judson Grimes, the Willie Shaws, the Kelvin Lumpkins, the Trevor Harveys, and Carolyn Masons, and we've built a really positive network there. And so we have an operation that's going on right now, and we're seeing results like you wouldn't believe. We're at 14 firearms that we pulled off the street in less than 3 weeks. And that's just by being visible and being proactive. So rewind a little bit. When I was the deputy chief here, and Chief Reeser was the chief here, and he kind of oversaw the downtown, was special to him. And then when I became the chief, we went into these meetings about unsheltered. And so I decided, you know, I'm gonna walk downtown. It's been a while, and I saw people laying on the pavers. I'm like asking the downtown beats. I'm like, what is this? And they're like, well, they can sleep there. I go, what, Sweden? There's no Sweden here. So what I did immediately was pull in our city attorney and say, get in my truck, let's go. And we went for a walk. And I go, legal or illegal? Legal or illegal? And sometimes he's like, I don't know. And my answer to him would be, well, if you don't know, how are the officers supposed to know? You're supposed to be the expert in arguing these. And if the officers can't even get probable cause, how are we supposed to get to a reasonable, beyond a reasonable doubt? So that's when we started working a plan. And I think it got better because we got more training for the officers. We started using examples. We started taking photos. Hey, is this a violation? Is this not a violation? So I think downtown has gotten better in that regard. It's never going to be perfect. It really isn't ever going to be perfect. Because like I said earlier, if you and I could figure out how to make this perfect, we'd be millionaires. Because San Francisco would be calling us, LA would be calling us, Chicago would be calling us, New York would be calling us. Now, having said that, because I did grow up in Chicago and I did see the proliferation of gangs and gang violence, one thing I'm very big on is getting on it. Because what I saw there was, it was allowed. And because it was allowed, it grew. So when we had MS-13 start to grow here about 10, 12 years ago, I got into the whole gang violence deal. I got into gang mode because I knew if we could stop it immediately, it would go away. Now, are there more things that we can do for unsheltered? Absolutely. There are more things that we can do. Do I think it's ever going to go away? I don't think it's ever going to go away. And quite frankly, this is a reason why. We have one of the largest Salvation Armies in Southwest Florida right here. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's just a fact. You're always going to have people on the periphery who want to eat, maybe get some clothes, but don't want to partake in services. Now, the officers do a great job. I have a sergeant here. He does a great job in making sure they get offered services, but we can't make them take services. So we have the educate part, we have the encourage part, and then we have the enforcement part, and we're starting to do the enforcement part. And we are starting to do some operations as well with respect to going out and making sure that, yes, you're homeless doesn't mean you can do drugs on the street. Okay, so those are things, and we're very active on that. But again, is it ever going to be perfect? It's not ever going to be perfect. Can we do better? Absolutely, and I'm all for that. The next hot topic, the noise. Trust me. Trust me, trust me, trust me. This DBC, DBA, decibels time, it is, again, attorneys have issues reading and understanding some of these things, right? And, you know, was the machine calibrated? When was it calibrated? Are you certified? Have you been recertified? You know your certification is running out. Those are challenges that we have to run into with respect to personnel. So I know St. Pete's gone to plainly audible. I know we have a variation of that with respect to vehicles, and it has worked. So I know that's coming up. So what I would say to that is, and I would just ask everybody in here that if you have a concern or you have input, now's your time. March 7th is the time to show up to that commission meeting and let them know what you think and how you want it done. But you have to be that voice, because we as law enforcement, obviously, we're not the legislation. We're not the legislative arm for this. We're not writing these laws. We're enforcing these laws. And I have some consternation when we have certain laws on the books, but there's not enough clarity. And I don't want to put our officers in a bad situation where they can be a lawsuit can be filed against them. I want my people to know that we stand behind it 100% and there's clarity there. So we're working on that as well. So my ask is show up for March 7th, definitely. Let your voices be heard. And with respect to unsheltered, I know we're working on another ordinance in regards to the sit, lay, lie, I believe it's called. And so we've been documenting through our body worn cameras. Anytime we're noticing that, we're actually snapping a photo with that. And then we're building essentially a book so that Mr. Fournier can move forward with that easier. So with that said, does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, as far as questions go, folks, let's start with our board members, and possibly there may be time for others to wait. But who would like to lead it off? Bob?
Yeah, I have a question. I live here, and we have some amplified music on Coconut that shows up from time to time. It's gotten a lot better. We work with the local CAT team. I think Sergeant Luciano. So the question is, amplified music, if it's past the property line, you know, isn't that a description of something that is illegal, you know, versus having a decibel meter or whatever? But if you could stand at the bridge in Pioneer Park and you can listen to that music really blasting at you, it's, you know, it's well past their property line. Is there anything we could do about that with the current statutes, the way they read?
So I think we're back to what we're talking about with respect to amplified sound, and there's different variations, right?
Right.
There's one that resonates, there's one that's constant, there's one that's from the vehicle, there's one from a speaker. That's where we're getting confused. And I think that's why it's important to show up for the March 7th meeting, because it needs to be very simple. I love personally, since you asked, plainly audible from 50 feet. I love that one. That's simple. It's common sense. So when we start trying to figure out, well, what is the definition of that device that's coming from? Is it a repeat noise? Oh, is it a speaker? Is it not? It starts to get really blurry. So we have been doing some operations in Pioneer Park, not just CAT, but some other units that I won't say are working that area, and it has been working out pretty well. So
I can tell you the difference in Pioneer Park. I've been here since 2007, so I was one of the first residents here. The improvement there is just incredible.
Yeah. And you know, we have this word called squeaky wheel, and some people get mad when you say it, but I use it all the time. Continue to be that wheel that needs a little grease, the squeaky wheel, because if you're not, then there's so many things that are going on. This isn't a town anymore. This is a city. This is a city. The population's here. And if people don't think the population's here, well, then let's bring in the population of Bradenton that comes here, and the population of Northport that comes here, and Venice. This is the hub where everybody comes to live, play, and work. So you got to be a squeaky wheel.
Thank you. Clark.
I live at 1350 and we face Main Street. And I guess it was a couple of Saturdays ago when there was a group of car owners who had left their mufflers at home or found the specialist. And I gather they had organized at Marina Jacks.
Yeah.
But we got the noise from the Palm Avenue garage. We've been downtown since 2007, and we've never heard anything like this. And they went around and around and all got together at the top. There were 6 of them at that point, and I didn't have a number for the police department other than 911. So I called, and actually the person who was monitoring the garage in the golf cart followed these guys up and had a conversation. I left my name, but I didn't say I needed a call back. I just wanted to have someone come down and maybe do something. I don't know if anyone ever showed up or not.
Have they returned since?
No.
So I think that's a one-off. Some of these cars.
Is that a group? Is that a gang? I mean, are they?
I don't know. I wouldn't say a gang.
Social?
Maybe a social car lover group, or I'm sorry, social muffler lover group. It might be that. Maybe it's, you know, what I call a one-off. They picked Sarasota, maybe they pick Tampa next time to meet in St. Pete. They probably go eat lunch, go for a drive around. Now, one of the things I'll say, since we've had a transition in the traffic court judges, we did meet with the new one with respect to loud mufflers. Well, the first judge had a very liberal understanding. Hey, if you buy it in the store, it's not aftermarket. Well, the second judge doesn't agree with that. So we're going with the second judge. So we've done a lot of traffic near the bridge, near all the construction. We did receive a grant to pay overtime for our traffic officers to do that, or even any other officers. So part of the challenge is for me as personnel with respect to that, because I think there was some delay getting there because dispatch held that call for a little bit. Dispatch doesn't work for us. Dispatch works for the sheriff's office. So I get a lot of emails about dispatch. So if anybody in here can just tell people, they work for the sheriff's office. Okay. We gave up our dispatch many years ago, and we contract out to the sheriff's office. So on that particular day, my understanding is they held that for a bit because we were busy. Because we prioritize calls, right? Burglary in progress, aggravated assault, battery, et cetera. Those are going to get higher priority. But since then, we've got a better understanding now of the muffler law And I think we're gonna get the support from the judges. Now, I will touch on another topic in regards to that. One of our challenges is we're doing our job, right? We're doing our job, they're doing their job, and they're doing a phenomenal job. And they're like a sponge. I take them and I ring them, and I ring them and I ring them and I ring them so I can get everything out of them. And it's terrible. And I shouldn't do that, but I have to do that, right? So I know they're doing their job. But some of the challenges is we're looking at the numbers with respect to felony charges, misdemeanor charges. We're putting those on people. But when we start looking at convictions, those are falling short. So you hear, we're not tough enough on crime as a nation. We're kind of not in regard. We just did this operation and we're pulling all the data. So we put together numbers all the time. And out of the 41 arrests, those people have a total of over 650 felonies committed. Okay. Now, out of that number, only 87 have been convicted. So those have gone through, they were found guilty on, out of 650, 87. That's like a 13% conviction rate. There's a problem. There's a problem. It's not on us. They go in the jail. We literally, it was a Monday, we arrested somebody with possession of 2 pounds of marijuana. And on Tuesday, we rearrested them again for selling marijuana again. So there's a problem. There's a disconnect. So since then, I've gotten with the state attorney at Brodsky. We've had a good talk about it. So we're trying to ensure that the enforcement is working, but we need to make sure that the attorney, the state attorney, and is working with respect to convictions. And if there's an issue as far as our job that we're not doing enough on the investigations, that needs to be conveyed to us so that we can do a better job at that. So I have a great relationship with Ed, great communication. I think we're going to do better on that.
Peter,
I'd like to get your perspective, Chief, on an issue around the homeless. We have a committee on homeless here, and we work, really appreciate the 3E program, the educate, encourage, enforcement. And just get your perspective as to how we could help you a little bit more in that, especially on the enforcement. I see your offices, they talk to these people, especially the downtown offices, know the people, know who's new on the corner, who isn't new on the corner. I get the partnership crime reports, incident reports, because it's more than just crimes. There's warrants, but there's also loitering and these kinds of things. And it seems that you can educate and encourage, but I hear from a lot of residents that I don't think there's any enforcement going on. And, we've worked with Judge Quatermain and her comprehensive court and the mental health court and so forth. What's your perspective on residents being able to do more to help you out with the homeless situation?
Well, I can tell you we are doing the enforcement part for sure. And we've been more active in that as well. And we've been taking resources and moving them around. And again, when I talk about the sponge and the squeezing, I squeeze the sponge, right? I really do.
Squeezed.
And I put a lot on them because, my job as the chief is to be much like a CEO or a CFO or a COO. I'm a visionary. I want to get it done. Here's the deal. I don't care about the minutia within, but we need to get from A to B, make it happen. And then I have people that get on that. So I do push them a lot.
I just have if I could just interject here. I have a clarification if you could help me with, and then just 2 questions. I'll put them out to you and then you can answer them. You had briefly mentioned your officers have an app, or they're taking pictures or submitting something. If you could just clarify, maybe I misheard that, pictures that they're taking regarding the sit and lie ordinance. And the other 2 questions I have, and you can answer them. One of them is, do you feel that the police presence or your staff in the downtown match the population density that we have? And do you see that fluxing at all? And the other one is, what do you see, or what do you feel that is the biggest challenge that your police officers face right now regarding enforcement, on the enforcement side?
Chief, I hope you followed that.
I didn't follow, but
okay.
let me finish answering.
Yeah.
Kathy, I'll be right with you because I wasn't quite.
No, it's
here.
okay.
The answer to your question is, and it's going to hurt for me to say this, but you got to stop giving people money. We're enabling them, and it hurts my heart as is an Episcopalian, you know, a God-fearing person. I get it. It's a tough deal, but they're going to continue to come here. If there's a resource for them to have, then they're going to continue on Main Street. So that's my short.
Okay. And Kathy, by the way, is a board member living in the Mark.
Okay.
Context.
Yes. So
So-
yeah, the app, I was gonna just,
I may have it. I think I may have it. So when I talked about them taking photos, they're using their body worn cameras to document that incident. And then that is on what we call our evidence.com. And then our city attorney is able to look for a specific code that we invented for that. I believe it's called 30-3. And then if they put 30-3, and then all those videos with respect to that violation will come up.
okay, so that is what I think is probably going to be shored up a little bit, I hope, with some of the ordinances that they're looking at that might help with clarification on some of that. But my other thing was, do you think that the police presence in the downtown area matches the population density that we have compared to the city
No.
in general?
No, I don't. And so there's some things in the works on that. One thing I tell the deputy city manager every time I meet him, which is twice a week, which is Pat Robinson, I open up with, I need more personnel. I need more personnel. I need more personnel. So I think that is in the works with respect to increasing officers downtown. But this is what we all need to remember, right? This type of job, I can't just bring somebody on in 2 weeks and they're on the street. We're talking a year process, if not a year and a half, before an officer is functional as a solo officer. So that's why it's important for governments to really stay ahead of this and to foresee it and forecast it before it happens, because then you're behind the 8 ball and it takes you a bit of time.
Okay, thank you. Patrick.
If I could just, one last question here regarding traffic. Patrick and I live up to Condo on the Bay, which is at the west end of Boulevard of the Arts. So we have to cross 41 to go pretty much anywhere. And whether it's on car or foot. And a lot of times on foot, because we're being encouraged as a more walkable city, crossing 41 or crossing Fruitville is dangerous when cars do not stop behind the stop lines. And therefore they end up parking or stopping in the middle of the intersection and usually in the middle of the crosswalks. And we have signs that says don't block blocks. What can the officers do to enforce that? Or are they allowed to write tickets when somebody is seen in the car in the middle of the intersection?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's obstructing the intersection. Absolutely. So this goes back to, we have an issue there. We have an issue down at the Circle. We have an issue at Coconut. We have an issue on Central. We have an issue down on Magnolia, down on 41, where people are crossing over from Osprey over 41, cutting through the neighborhood. We have an issue out east on Fruitville and Geneva. I have a 6-person traffic unit, and not only are they a traffic unit, but they're also our traffic homicide investigators. So if they have a call out at 2 in the morning, they're going to work that for 2 days. And then the traffic unit's kind of broken up because each one has a different job with respect to that investigation. So again, we have this increase in population and we can see it. I mean, people can say we're 56,000 people. I don't believe it. They can say it, but I can tell you with the amount of cars and traffic I see out there, that can't make sense. It's not making sense. So yes, we need to do a better job at it. We need to look at other ways of traffic calming in order to stop that. But another problem is, and I just experienced the other day when I went and saw my daughter play at University of Central Florida, was I'm looking at this Google thing and it's telling me to turn left, but this lane, there's no lane to turn left. And I'm like halfway in, halfway out. I got people behind me. And we have to realize too that we have a lot of tourists that come here from other countries, from other states. They don't know their way around. So they're struggling too. And when they're relying on these maps that don't make sense because the traffic pattern keeps switching, there's a challenge there. So I think there needs to be some grace on our part, but I'm also a big fan of walking bridges. Like, why don't we look into walking bridges, a bridge that goes over 41? That's going to cost probably about, I may have looked into it, maybe $2 million. But I think walking bridges are important because you mentioned earlier, I have a master's degree in emergency management. Well, there's a saying in emergency management where you don't see the green until you see the red. And so why wait for something to happen? Why don't we just get ahead of it and we put in some some walking bridges. I think that would be a really good project.
I think we might have some answers with our transportation committee, headed by Roger Barry up there. We've gone round and round on walking bridges, and we might not have the same perspective as you do on that, but be a good topic, Roger, to sit down and talk about.
Let's set a time and talk about it one day for sure. I would love to hear the comments.
One question that I recall at an October city commission meeting was, there was a question about how many citations had been issued related to sit and lie, as I recall. And there was some discrepancy between Mr. Fournier's records and maybe your records. Have you begun in that 5 months period to try and capture data so we can look at trends? How is that? How are you doing that differently than you might have been?
So I'm going to get a confirmation on this, and then you can tell me if I'm right. I think I'm right. So when it comes to the warning, when we give the warning, hey, you need to pick up and leave, people tell us, okay, right? Am I right?
That is correct.
Have we written one?
Because we don't have supply. Right now we have 30-3.
Right.
Which every time we encounter somebody, even if we've encountered them before doing the same thing, we have to again warn them. So every time a reasonable person, 99.9% of the time is going to say, yes, sir, I'll move. And that's sometimes why you don't see enforcement, is you have to warn them, they comply, they move.
Have we written one?
Halfway down the block.
Have we written one? So here's the challenge. And this is what kind of, we went back and forth on this, and then I was over it. I don't understand if I say, hey, Jamie, you're blocking the sidewalk. We're in front of 1511 Main Street. There is an ordinance that you can't do that. And I read her the ordinance, and I see, if I find you in violation of that again, I'm going to cite you. Well, the direction we've been given is, okay, Jamie says, okay, I'm going to move. But then she goes to 1515, literally a building over, and does the same thing. We have to warn her again. So it comes down to, I argued and I thought, well, if it's on Main Street, it's on Main Street. That should cover it. But, we get into these games where we're splitting hairs so much, it just becomes very frustrating. So I would say, so to answer your question, the officers, like I said earlier, when they do see somebody in that position, they are snapping that information. It is being recorded and documented, and that is the data that Mr. Fournier is going to use.
Okay, so you're capturing things differently than you might have been 5 months. So there's more of a trend line on this. Okay.
I didn't understand. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Because that's.
If you're continuing.
I didn't understand. We have to warn them again. What's the have to?
I didn't understand it either.
Oh, that's the direction you've been given. You have to warn them again.
Direction we
How many warnings do you have to give them before you?
They each place is a do-over. They get a new do-over at each.
Oh, because the address changed, it's a new warning?
And they all understand that.
And they know the game.
So if I'm speeding on Tamiami at the 500 block and you're nice enough to give me a warning and I speed at the 700 block, you're gonna warn me again?
No, I'm getting you on that one. I'm getting you on that one. That's different.
All right.
But, again, we're in this new realm of this vehicle that we're trying to use. And so there's discussion with myself and the city attorneys and whatnot, and they think this is the best, safest way to do it. And I have to lean on them because that's what they do. That's their job. Their job is to protect the police department in the city.
Okay. And Jamie,
Yes.
you had a question. I'm afraid folks were about going to have to wrap it up.
Okay. There's one thing the downtown residents could do to help you guys. What would it be?
So I would say, support the people in Blue. That's what I would say. And a lot of y'all do it now, right? You say thank you. They get lunches some of the time. People do that. It's very generous for them. But at the end of the day, we just want to know that we're supported, right? Because there's this old cliche saying, right? The community are the police and the police are the community. And that is true, because without you and without your support, we can't do what we're doing. But we have to know that we're supported, and if an officer makes a mistake or we're in this really gray line, that the community is not going to turn, because I can tell you that everything they do is with best intention. because if their intentions weren't good, I would make sure they're not part of our agency. That's my job to make sure. But these two right here are very special people. They do a lot of things for other people outside of here, but that's the kind of people that we hire. So to answer that, just, you know, support the blue, support the green, just support us, and let me on.
And you've encouraged us to show up or write on the 7th. And I know that that is underway. And we would just encourage you to the extent possible that you make known what you need to do your job even better.
Yes.
Compassionate, but reasonable way. So
It's like parenting, right? And compassionate but firm, right? And so, yeah, I encourage everybody to show up for March 7th. Please make your voices heard. And then we'll move forward from there. And at the end of the day, we're going to do whatever guidelines or the ordinance says or laws. That's how we're going to move forward.
Can I ask you a question?
just very, very quick, Ted.
There's either 2019 or I went through the police academy.
Mhm.
Do you still have that?
So we still have it, but we had to suspend it due to COVID.
That's one of the things that we could, everybody go through that police academy that I went through. It was phenomenal.
We're going to do
And
it.
I learned about the police problems and that would do more, I think, help.
We're definitely going to do it.
Okay. All right. Listen.
Does he want one more? I forgot.
This will be the third time I got shut down.
All right, go for it. 3 strikes and you're in.
We never have enough time for the audience. Real question, how do you measure or define clearly audible? Let's say it's 50 feet. The restaurants will argue 100 feet. What is clearly audible? I have
So,
excellent hearing.
yeah,
Some people don't.
That's a great question. And I just had this discussion with an attorney in my office literally 2 hours ago. And I said, hey, you'll roll up and you'll think, wow, that's really bad. And I could roll up and I could be salsa dancing as I roll up going, wow, that's really good. So there's going to have to be some training with respect to that. There's going to have to be training. Because it is so subjective because not everyone's going to agree in this room if the stereo by the pool over here is loud or not. So there's going to be a degree of training. There's never going to be a perfect system.
Well, clearly subjective sounds like it's at risk of being thrown out because it is so subjective and it's not measured.
Well, I think one of the keys is going to
It's
be
like saying you saw a guy who was going really fast on the bridge, but you don't know how.
right. But I think the difference here is we're going to have body worn camera.
Oh, okay.
All the officers have
You
body
have
worn
volume
camera.
on it? It has sound on it?
Oh yeah, it's got amazing sound on it.
All right.
So that is going to be what we call the third person in the room when we have the body worn camera, which on any contact that we have with people, we have to turn on our
All
camera.
right, I promised a short answer.
Okay, well, thank you again for
Thank you.
coming, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I have to leave, but I'm trying to stay married. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Okay. Next. Okay, folks.
Yes.
Trying to. Yes. Hey, Ted. Ted. Okay. All right, back to the agenda. On one other item under new business, I am very pleased to say we have a new member. And the Ritz-Carlton residences at the Quay, which I believe is around 59 units recently constructed, have expressed interest in joining DSCA. And we're really welcome to have a Quay property into the mix, shall we say, along with Golden Point and everything. So at this point, they haven't nominated their representative at this point. This is kind of breaking news, but would like to, I guess we move to.
I'll make a motion to accept Ritz-Carlton Residences Quay as a new regular member.
I second.
Okay, I think
Everybody.
I think we're all okay.
Patrick was first. Did you say Bob?
Everybody.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I think there'll be a great addition to our association.
You know what's great about that?
What?
Many of the residents there aren't new to DSCA. They were in other condominiums and you know, several,
Right.
they're gonna be good members right from the beginning.
And I understand the president of their HOA is Wayne Root.
Right, Wayne used to be at the Savoy with me.
Okay. All right, moving along, old business annual meeting, annual members meeting. Patrick, I think you're the authority on this, if you would take over on this segment, please.
Okay, so the notices have gone out of the meeting on, I think tomorrow, Thursday, the invitations, email invitations will go out. We had a few people register already, but there will be separate invitations. And I want to point out, just for people's notice, there will be two different invitations. We have separated out the two events. There is the workshop event, which will begin at 4 o'clock. And then due to the speaker's schedule, we had to move the annual meeting to after the workshop event, which is slightly different from how we've done it in the past. So we have set the members meeting to start at 6, and then hopefully by 6:30, we can begin the reception thereafter. So we will encourage people who would like to stay over after the workshop to stick around for the reception, but we do need to conduct about 30 minutes of business for that. So this is the agenda that's been sent out. Also, the proxies were sent out. And in this case, the only thing that is being approved, to be approved here in the proxy, is to vote to accept the slate of officers. And in this case, we have our 10 returning board directors, I'm sorry, not slate of board directors. We have 10 returning ones and a new one to be added that has put herself forward is Judy Maurer from La Belisara. So that is to be 11. And so we do need to have a quorum of votes to be accepted there. And I'm going to send that out, email sent out. Yes, so so far, only 4 of our members have submitted their proxies for the meeting. And so we're going to need to have quite a few more. So further emails are going out, but please, if you are the member rep and you have received that, please fill it out, sign it, and email it back. If you're a condo member, a president, or any other participant, and you didn't receive it, check with your property manager and or your condo member rep, or ask us who they are so we can get those submitted. We appreciate that. Also, a quick update on the number of members. We ended last year at 40. Currently, we have 7 of those 40 who have not paid. So if we don't get payment, they will be taken off the registered roll. So if we're left with 33, we will need a quorum of 17. And actually, if we get the payment for our new member, then they would be had to be 34, so that would make it the 18 quorum. So anyway, that's what we have to work for, is to get enough response for that, as well as a few more that have not yet paid.
And Judy is here, and we wanted to say welcome to you. Judy comes with a PhD in social psychology. And that's going to be very helpful. She's been involved.
How to exploit them.
And really helpful, and just helps focus on Jenny Rowe visit, and has just done some amazing work. So thank you, Sarah. University of Syracuse.
Happy to be involved.
Okay, we look forward to welcoming you. So thank you. Patrick, is that?
That's it for my item. Yes.
Okay. City update, Kathy Sellers, she and I talked a little earlier on the phone, and could you?
Yeah, I'll just do a really quick one. With the DID, I did listen in on the DID. Just a few things to note. Our sidewalks are going to start getting cleaned monthly, which is great. Fresh Friday, that contract is coming to an end, and they're looking to extend that. They were looking at their strategic plan, but I think that that was basically it. They were looking at some items regarding rezoning or zoning from the city, but that is kind of it in a nutshell. As far as the commission meeting goes, I'm gonna kind of defer a little bit to David Lough on what they were talking about regarding the tree ordinance. He spoke really well to that. But they did look at and they approved the primary grid street, the revision on that. And then they looked at the right-of-way permits and the fees and the sidewalk cafe permits, and that was unanimously voted in. And then, of course, we all know about March 7th, the potential amendments to the city sound ordinance. There's been a lot of traffic in regards to emails going to the city, a lot of communication with concerned citizens. I think there's going to be a lot that's going to be there. And I think to the chief's point, people need to make their concerns known. And we do have a problem with enforceable ordinances. And to his point, they need something that they can get their teeth into and enforce. So I think we are all kind of behooves all of us to get involved or at least take an interest in what's going on with that, because that's pretty significant. So I think that was as quick as I could make it. So
Okay.
David, with the tree ordinance, I'll kind of put that off to you.
The tree ordinance. I think they kicked the can down the road again on that. So I actually am having a senior moment here and not remembering it. Some of you recall, Patrick, are you recalling how the tree ordinance was
You
left?
had said that they approved or asked the staff to come back with a few minor some changes, and I didn't quite catch the details on it.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
coming back. It seemed like maybe 70% of it or so was agreed, but they asked staff to come back, and I would assume they'll probably be coming back in the next 4 or 5 weeks. Is my guess.
It was a very, very long discussion. It was a long one to listen to.
Right. Okay. And as far as a president's report, I really don't have any remarks to make other than later about the Rosemary, but I don't have any real specifics to mention here. Committee reports. Ken, what about?
Sure. The Arts and Cultural Committee did not have a meeting in February. We had planned to meet with Dr. Leslie Butterfield, but she became unavailable for family reasons. So we are postponing her. On March 10th, we'll be presenting the DSCA Board Member Board decision about what our input into the city's public art master plan will be. And that was voted on at the February meeting. We do have a meeting planned for March 16th with Jeffrey Kim, who is the head of the new arts festival that's being planned for the DID downtown. And that'll be very interesting. He's asking for input and help, particularly on focusing what the arts festival is all about. So that should be very interesting. March 16th.
What was the original idea of the arts festival?
Well, there isn't. The DID wants a festival to bring people downtown, to bring tourists and business downtown. So they've appropriated $100,000 a year for the next 3 years to plan such a festival, and hopefully it'll be in place by 2025. So right now, the planning process is going on, and he's developing a mission and purpose and objective statements, and he's trying to figure out what it's going to celebrate, what it's going to be about. Is it going to be performing arts, or is it going to be visual arts or graphic arts, and where is it going to be? So, and it's hasn't come into focus yet.
Okay. Something more grand than the 42 art festivals that we have downtown.
Oh, not those kinds of arts festivals. No, not like the one that was downtown a week ago.
Hey, I am Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Kim, K-I-N, Jefffery.
Oh, okay.
He's very particular.
Thank you. And here I was worried about the last name spelling.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it? Okay. Associate and Events Committee, Jamie, you want to kick this off and then I can,
You want to talk, you're talking about Jenny? Or-
yeah, and.
Okay, I can talk about just the May 10th event. Is that what you want me to talk about, the May 10th event?
Yeah, why don't you talk about
Okay.
that and we'll come back to Jen.
Yeah, so Kristen and I have been working together, kicking around some ideas. I think we just got a list of some potential thoughts and potential speakers. So forwarded that to David recently, and the group of us will get together and decide on what we want to finalize, and we're hoping to get a flyer out soon, or put together soon. to
Okay,
look
in
at.
summary, that's, you kind of settled on the positioning of tech.
Yes, what was some of the titles? I mean, you could throw out just some debate. We're not settled on any of these, but.
Oh gosh, I sent them to you. You know, I just keep remembering Clark telling me on the last one, can you make it a little more sexy? So I did try to sex it up a bit, but it's like
Kind of like bringing your condo into this, the new
21st century.
And yeah, so basically EV, it'll be a whole bunch of tech stuff for your condo, and also we'll throw in some EV, which will make.
Excellent.
Okay, and do you have that? Did you have that spread? Just a Jen schedule? No.
I can, let me put up the flyer first.
Flyer, yeah,
Talk about
flyer.
that, and then I'll.
Yep.
Has anybody asked Jenny Rowe what kinds of titles have been on previous similar workshops?
She liked our flyer, so.
Oh, good.
Okay. So, yeah. So here's the flyer, and thanks to Patrick, Jamie, Robin, our marketing person.
Yeah.
We think did a nice job on this one pager. So, distribution plans, we talked about the other day, Patrick, refreshment memory.
Well, it's going out again with the invitation this week to our list that's out there, and we have been reaching out to other local organizations who have responded back and said that they would definitely like to participate and help promote. And that includes the Economic Growth Corporation, the Visit Sarasota County, because they have been promoting Sarasota County as a health and wellness destination. And feeling this fits right in, that the idea of restorative city for mental health and well-being is something that they want to help promote for Sarasota. And plus the businesses recognize, especially post-COVID, that the reducing stress is absolutely essential for their workers, especially if they want their workers to come back to the offices and work downtown with all the other thousands of people downtown, the noise and the parking and the traffic, et cetera, that adds to the stress, which affects your mental health and your well-being, your skill productivity level. So these things are coming to the forefront, and I think the businesses are recognizing that. The key thing is working then with the city and the planning. And so if you want to go over some of the individuals you have on the list there, I think that's what's
Yeah,
really
John
needed too.
Baxton, I think, known to everybody, is going to be our facilitator. And Mary Davis Wallace, I spoke to her the other day. She is kind of inside the planning department. Her title says public art, but she's quite a bit more involved in the planning process and than her title implies. So she's very, very enthusiastic about this. Dr. Niels, well-known from the physician standpoint, who work on cognitive health and aging. And then Craig Soretta is kind of the business angle. He's the managing broker of Sotheby's. So we're trying to bring in kind of a eclectic kind of group with John Thaxton moderating. We are a little bit time constrained. We're working within an hour and a half, and that is a challenge. But
Wow, yeah.
been developed. So, and
So bring up the, let me see if I can
yeah,
switch over to
we've developed a kind of a big picture calendar of Jenny's movements over the time she's in town for 2.5 days-ish. So she's going to be arriving on a Wednesday night. We're going to do a breakfast meeting with her with 5 or 6 of us as kind of a welcome and with the lay of the land. Then we're going to arrange a tour of the city, the greater city, the Bay Park, Bobby Jones, whatever. I'm in the process of kind of orchestrating that. And then our event is in the afternoon. The next day, Mary Davis Wallace is arranging a breakfast with the city planning department. So we'll be holding that hopefully at City Hall on the morning of Friday. The luncheon event, we're in the process of working, Patrick, so a couple options there.
Yes, we've reached out, trying to reach out to both the education and arts community. So I was at an event this weekend with Dr. Larry Thompson and David Hooley, the futurist. And they were talking about redesign and a regenerative that you have to restore and start. And it felt right in with the restorative city aspect. And so they would love to help support this. And we've sent them the information. They're looking at how they could help put together a meeting at possibly one of the at Ringling College or something like that. Invite people from both the arts community, other professors. Because when you take a look at what Dr. Jenny Rowe has been involved in, she has done, and her group at the University of Virginia, a number of studies, one of which a couple of years ago was on a study on urban walking and the impacts and the effects and so forth, and things that get behind it. So there's a number of areas where I think her and her university team interact with some of our teams, academic teams here, who we have talked about bringing in to help us in analyzing some of the growth information, the impacts, et cetera. And so if we can use this event to help reach out through these other aspects of the communities, especially the educational side, and also the arts centers and so forth, as to how that affects our city, I think is a real positive thing. And so it's just a matter of finding the right people to say, yes, this meeting room is available and who can support it and fund it, et cetera. So we're tracking that, and hopefully we'll have something here next week.
And then in that afternoon, Anand Palagar is going to be hosting a younger demographic, movers and shakers of the younger community for a wine and cheese at his studio in the Rosemary. So we're working on details there. And then on the Saturday, I'm happy we've been able to arrange a book signing at Bookstore 1 at noon, which is right toward the end of the farmers market, helping drive some traffic and awareness there. So we're working, a group of us are working on it. And my ask of you is, how would you like to be involved in this? Are there certain segments that you're more interested in others? And certainly, welcome your participation, or those others watching, if you'd be somehow like to see something that kind of grabs on to your interest. So what's the end game? The end game is to try and get some traction on this framework of the 7 pillars as some framework that might have a life beyond just this visit, and that the city could begin to look at this. There's something in this from visioning and their strategic planning, possibly with the help of Mary Davis and trying Steve Cover onto this and see where this leads. So it's not something. So that's where things are. Any questions? One thing that Patrick and Judy have suggested is maybe on these 7 pillars, green, blue, whatever, that we might try and do a survey in advance of our visit to have us self-score ourselves and how our city is. And Judy has provided me just at the beginning of the meeting with some of her thoughts on this. And I know Patrick is working on something, so we're gonna kind of blend those ideas. So we might, for example, present how we scored ourselves at the beginning of the meeting with her or something. To be determined.
That's, if I could interject here, what I gave David is, it's a one-page handout where people who attend this event can be more than audience. And they can give our city, I did it with grades, a grade from A to F on each of the 7 pillars. And it's a one-pager, it won't take, but you're gonna collect names and email addresses, and then you can send out a message to say, so how do you want to help? That kind of thing.
Great. So again, this is a work in progress and to be continued, and kind of loop you in as go along. If you have any input along the way, please let me or us know. Okay.
David, just a logistical question. Is it going to be recorded?
Yes, we'll go back to what we used to do in the past pre-Zoom days, is bring our our camera, a video camera, and then the video camera, and then we'll go through the same process and put it up on our YouTube channel for that. But we do encourage people to come, and that, yes, we'll have that afterwards.
On the city's mental health, I know the parks are very important. Are you gonna have anybody from the Parks Department interacting with this lady?
Probably I'm trying to do it on the tour. At one of our parks, but that's a good thought.
Well, clearly on the Thursday, Friday morning, meeting with city staff would be to reach out to all the appropriate staff that are impacted.
We will try. That's gonna be like herding cats, but we're gonna try.
Yeah, whatever else they got on their agendas for that Friday morning or something. So,
okay.
Are there any other suggestions for other ways of interacting? Any of our other member representatives, on people on the Zoom? You saw the whole breadth of what we're trying to accomplish here.
No, I like the idea of taking the 7 pillars and trying to draw that pillar head in for the city, whether it's green being Jerry Fogel or whoever, you decide that you're going to have. I think that's a great idea.
And we've got flyers here, and I'll be giving some here to Ted and David to take to the CCNA meeting on Saturday to talk about. I noticed we have Kathy Benz from Kona, and hopefully we can reach out and have the countywide neighborhood associations help to spread the word on this event too, Kathy.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Green space, Patrick.
Really, I was hoping to have more to report on with the tree ordinance approval, which didn't occur, and so it's more works on that. So we'll continue to work to support that. The other thing we've been talking about is how to activate the parks, and so I was at the meeting that Peter will talk about with homeless committee. That's an ongoing item. We don't have a report yet on that, but there is discussions on that, and I want to encourage people who are out there who are concerned about how our parks can be activated and make use of the benches and things like that, to contact us. Make sure you're on our list, so when we have meetings around that, you can be part of that discussion.
Okay. Yes, sir, Peter.
Homeless committee. My first statement is I apologize to the homeless committee that we met yesterday. I'm going to give a report on what we did, but it's a draft report. So if there's anything that is there that you want to edit out or add to, just I'll send out this draft report and you can have added and we'll approve it at the next meeting. We had a good meeting last night. We had new members. We had some old members who hadn't been attending that came along. We had a pretty good discussion about what we're doing. And basically 2 things. The committee wants to develop a coordinated communication and interface with other responsible parties on the board for issues that go beyond the just simply the homeless. We have some bigger issues out there that the homeless committee has tried to address on behalf of the DSCA, but things that are well beyond homes, like the lie sit ordinance. It doesn't only apply in its to the homeless population. I mean, you can have people blocking sidewalks with restaurant tables, or you can have waiters gathering around and dancing in the middle of the sidewalk or something. So there are bigger issues, and the panhandling solicitation ordinance. I mean, you have firefighters out in the medians with their boots collecting money, and how does that really differ from a homeless person out there with a sign collecting money? So there are bigger issues for some of these ordinances. So we thought what we might be able to do to give that its proper focus is to work with other committees, especially the one that Kathleen has, the Health and Safety Committee, because that cuts across that, and along with her involvement with the city updates, rather than the Homeless Committee trying to work on these by itself. And with that, then, Jan Hetland, a new member on our committee, has agreed to work as kind of Catherine's assistant here to pursue this and develop some strategies that can be utilized by the board. So then the Homeless Committee decided that it's focusing on the issues of education and public forums focused on the various aspects of homelessness that we can get their condominium associations and their members involved in. And we reviewed an example of the first A module, education module that can be used. It'll consist of a PowerPoint presentation, resources, and a library of materials that would be available to condominium associations. And we worked on a first draft of a PowerPoint presentation and went through it. And it's pretty easy, and it's pretty informative, and we'll continue to work on that. And then, as Patrick indicated, the next meeting, which is on March 31st at 4:30, that agenda is going to focus almost exclusively on activation of select parks in the city, and how we can go about activating these parks that the city commission seems to be very attuned to. I know Mayor Arroyo has said we need more activation. He doesn't see anything happening in the parks that mitigates the homeless problem. So we'll work on that on March 31st.
Good. Can I ask a question? Just yesterday, my husband and I pulled up into a parking space at the FedEx office down on 41. And we pulled up next to a car. A nice appearing woman got out of the car, 60s, I'd say, glanced into the car. She's obviously living out of the car. I know that it's toxic charity, as it's called. They give such a person money. It's like she was gone before we looked at what she had there. What can you do? Can you call in how big is that problem? People living out of their cars. Do you call in the license plate? If she's not breaking the law, I mean, how do you analyze that situation?
So you want to call in to help her, not arrest her.
No, what could we do?
Actually, I don't know, but living in the car is considered one of those aspects where maybe she's not homeless. She just has an alternative home. So, so she may never come on anybody's radar screen because she's living in an alternative home. But there are people, and the police department is very much aware of it, and they give a pass to people that they know that are in a no parking zone parking lot. And as long as they're not creating problem, they take note of it, and then they start to work on the educate, encourage program, and try not to do the enforcement. Try to get them in through if they'll come through the Suncoast Partnership, which is the entrance agency for homeless services and so forth. We know it's a problem. It's not a big problem, but the problem that does create is usually a family that's in a car, not just a single person. It's a single mom and a couple of kids, a dad and a wife and a kid. And so it is a problem that is on people's radar screen.
All right, thanks, Judy. Health and safety, other than what Kathy talked about earlier on the COVID charts, I circulated those right before I left home today. The new numbers came in. I didn't get a chance to chart them. it's down another 50%. So it went like this, and it just is kind of it continues to fall. The countywide numbers are about half of what they were even a week ago. So it's trending in the right way, thankfully. Okay. Transportation, Roger.
Okay, yes. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have three things I'm going to focus on. The first is this morning at 8 o'clock, the Bay Runner Trolley went in business. 20 to 30-minute headway from downtown Sarasota to Lido. They're going to have, I tried to load it, couldn't get it, a real-time information app like they have out on Siesta Key, so you can tell where the trolley is and how soon it will be reaching the point that you may want to board it. This is going to be an interesting experience, and I'm looking forward to riding it tomorrow. I didn't get it done today. The second one of interest is that the Florida Association of Public Art Professionals has decided to meet in Sarasota featuring art in roundabouts. And of course, roundabouts for traffic safety. And so that's going to be held April 26th to 29th here in the city. And it features both engineers who do roundabout design and of course the public art professionals. And one of the things they're showing off is the downtown roundabouts and the art in Sarasota. And the third one, the harder one to talk about is the Gulf Stream improvements with its construction. I live in that and drive it 2 or 3 times a day. I've really gotten pretty proficient at it because it's removed the stoplights and my trip is much faster than it used to be, but the frustration level for people is relatively high. And how come it takes so long? It's primarily because of the infrastructure improvements that are being made, replacing the underground drainage structures, raising the thing, utilities, fiber optic, street lights, reconfiguration of stormwater, retention ponds, sidewalks, etc. It's a frustration that we're going to live with until it's completed sometime, I hope, this fall, perhaps with the configuration of the roundabout we can use in the summer. And that concludes my report. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Roger.
Okay.
Alan, the EV survey status and anything else on the EV ban?
Briefly, the survey went out last month to member managers and member representatives. Patrick and I talked, I guess maybe by email, I'm not sure, about extending the return date by now it'll be another couple of weeks just to make sure we've captured everybody and send them an email to remind people to be sure to respond. I don't have the latest data, and hopefully we'll be able to report on this at our April meeting. Patrick had some preliminary numbers. They're still preliminary because we don't have the final, presumably we don't have the final results because more people have yet to send in. But Patrick, can you just, if you have it handy, give a brief look at what kind of response we're getting, not necessarily data.
We have only had 6 surveys filled out, or I'm sorry, of the people who have submitted that, only 6 said that yes, they have existing EV charging stations. And so we've gotten a range of data, but it's a number of 6. And I'm trying to look at the email. I sent it to you, Alan, with that information.
Patrick, I do have a question on that.
of those people who do not, one of the initial question in the questionnaire, in the survey, was do you have it or don't you, basically. And if people do not have it, did we get a response from them, or did they just simply check no, and that's the only thing, and then we never heard?
Right, of the people who didn't have it, about 2/3 said that they were interested in future getting it. So only about 1/3 of those that said that they didn't have it, said they had no plans looking forward.
Okay, so those even those results tell us something. It gives us an indication of how many people have it, how many don't, and how many don't but are interested in pursuing it. And so when we collect the data, we'll share that with you folks and with the member condos.
Right. And there's interesting information in there about of those that do have it, the range of types of payment structures is quite interesting. So that's going to be helpful to publish there. And if anybody else has it, we ask you, please fill it out as soon as you can.
Right.
I apologize if I missed it, but how many of those surveys did you send out, and how many have you gotten back?
Patrick, you have the number? I think about 30 went out. We had, trying to recall, 7 responses, but that's where I'm a little confused whether those were the people who said, yes, we have it, and here's what we have.
Okay.
Or did we have more responses, but a lot of them said, no, we don't have it.
Okay, all right, I guess that's, okay, that answers that question then, okay.
To be continued with follow-up and leading up to driving toward this May 10th event, where hopefully some of the results, what we have, can be reported. So, zoning committee, that's an open position. We know that Steve Cover is working on a number of matters that, frankly, I'm having difficulty following it all. But there's some stuff coming down the pike with a fair bit of new news emerging regarding affordable housing zoning in Park East and other parts. So stay tuned on that. CCNA, Ted?
Bay Park?
Oh, Bay Park, sorry, Bob.
I think everyone is up to date on Bay Park. You will be able to start distributing. They do a good job of publishing on a regular basis the construction updates, what's going to be open, what's going to be closed, what they're doing. They're adding lighting, for instance, to the Bayou Bridge. They're going to be putting some decorative burning, some decorative patterns into the deck. But essentially, I'll be continuing to do that. And on that line, Jeannie Perales, and she puts together a list monthly of the entertainment that's going to be going over at the park. And I will continue, I'll start sharing that if everybody wants to see it. I don't know how many of you are on the Bay Parks distribution list as it is now, but at the end of the day, you can always swipe it off, if you've already gotten it.
Okay. Good. CCNA, Ted.
Basically, they have their meeting, last month, right after ours, and consequently, all the stuff they discussed, you already have seen in the newspaper. And so there's nothing really new that you haven't seen already. The one thing that we need to do is I need to have some kind of direction for this meeting Saturday on the CCNA's ballot, so to speak, on 4 different issues that they want to have, 5, I guess, issues that they want to have us give an opinion on. And I don't know how you want to handle that, David.
I'm torn. I mean, it would seem to me that, and this is maybe where Peter can help us kind of go through these and because he was on the charter committee. And historically, I must say that I'm not aware of how this has weighed in on this kind of stuff in the past.
A long time.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Well, we weigh in regularly on CCNA votes.
Right.
This is simply a CCNA resolution that Ted has brought in front of us as our rep, CCNA. And on Saturday, he will be asked to vote at that and whether or not we want to give direction to how our CCNA member rep would vote or not.
Well, from my perspective, having served on the Charter Review Committee, I appreciate what CCNA is trying to do. And I know that they want to keep the survey maybe to one sheet, but and they selected four of the 7 articles that were changed. So there are 3 other articles that have changes in them. The one that, I'm going to take the first one, the proposal for the mayor shall be elected in an at-large citywide election to serve a 4-year term. And then they give a little explanation. But unless you had the full explanation, you may, I think, looking at that, I might say, well, no, I'm not going to vote for that. But with a fuller understanding of the discussion that went on and why the committee thought that this is a good idea, I don't think it's a totally fair representation. I don't want to criticize CCNA because I really think they've made an effort to get some input into it. So I hope they'll forgive me for saying things like that. And you'll have to, there's some personal effort put in, 30 or 40 hours of discussion on this with a group of 9 other people. So.
But wouldn't what you said, Peter, about number 1 be true of all of them?
Well, it might be. Some of them are a little more easy to understand. If you did this, if you believe that our city commissioners aren't paid enough, this one seems to make some sense. You might, you have enough information there that either knee-jerk and say, no, we shouldn't pay any public service because they don't do anything. And I've heard that. Or we should double that because they have so much to do. So that's, that was presented fine. The one on voters' approval for the 4 commissioners, that's a little weak on the explanation because it is five commissioners, one elected at large. And I think it needs to be emphasized that the other 4 are really single member districts. You're voting for the member that represents you, and the others. It's not it's across the whole city. And then the supermajority vote, I think that one explained well. Right now, it's a majority vote, and on the selling of city property. So I think that one's probably pretty explanatory. So,
Peter, one that I didn't, on number 3, the single member districts, so the other 4 members of the commission, are they going to be elected on a 4-year cycle as well?
yes.
Okay, it doesn't say that.
Could I interject here? We had this discussion at our board meeting yesterday. I'm on the board of Golden Gate Point Association. And I could add more, but I've got to run because I've got a commission. But let me tell you this. I attend CCNA on behalf of Golden Gate Point Association. I take notes and I write a report. I have been assigned to listen carefully to the argument being made at the CCNA meeting on Saturday. What's the rationale? Because our board, first of all, most were opposed. For example, state legislators for Florida make $22,000 a year. We don't have comparisons. We don't have context to know how to evaluate these things. My job is to do the homework, write the report for my board so that we can collectively make a decision. I will just forward everything that I come up with to you as well. So with that, I gotta go. Okay, sorry.
So just building on that, for instance, the committee did look and had information on 40 communities that have there and what they got paid and whether they were,
See, that's
full-time,
what
part-time, and so forth.
And
So-
it's great that you did that. We just need more context
I think so.
in order to make
Yeah.
a judgment. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks. I can say that I personally watched in on the charter reviews, probably half of it, not everything, but what I saw was a very deliberative and kind of balanced debate, so as to speak. And I was impressed by the civility of and the differing points of view expressed, and I personally am supportive of the recommendation. So I don't know how others feel, and is this, do we have enough information to weigh in on this?
Well, as for me, I don't support number one. I think it's almost silly because it's such a weak position that they've defined. Salaries, I think Judy's right. We need some context because the city commissioners serve 12 months out of the year, and the state legislators only serve 3 months out of the year. So, but the single member district, I'd like to know how that would be affected by the lawsuit that resulted in the current structure that we have for the city commission. That's 3 districts and 2 at large. Supermajority vote, I don't understand why you need a supermajority vote to sell a surplus city property. That doesn't make sense. And this last one does not belong. The additional recommendation does not belong in a charter. That is simply not charter material. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, actually, on that last one, it is in the charter, and it's in 3 different places. So you'd have to go for each individual situation, as we did. You'd have to say, well, under this situation, it's in this article in the charter. The recall section is towards the end of the charter. And then there's all kinds of things.
This isn't recall. This is investigating a member.
Well, investigate and you do have.
I mean, there needs to be some context for this because a single incident of somebody losing their temper. I mean, and he's not the only person who's lost his temper. The city manager's done it too.
So yeah, we had multiple discussions on this, and I'm sorry that it's boiled down to a sentence, yes or no, because there were a lot of information around that sentence, and we would hope. I can't speak for the charter, but I believe that the charter would hope that additional weight would give to the fact that we had 15 meetings of at least 2 hours each, and that each meeting was probably 4 or 5 hours of preparation to get ready for that meeting to fully understand everything. So I would hope additional weight by the city commission will be given to the recommendation of the charter.
But I think the bottom line for me is I don't think we're in a position as a member, as individual members, to vote on a position, yes or no, with these. Because we don't have any context. We weren't a party to those discussions.
Thoughts?
Well, I agree with you because I watched some of the meetings too. And the meetings went well from a behavior perspective. I just don't think these are the kinds of things that we ought to be voting on without more discussion.
I tend to agree. This is I believe the first time I've seen these recommendations from CCNA in the descriptions that they provided. Proposal, the second one, for example, with the 2% annual increase, I may not have any objection to that, but it seems to me to put into a charter an automatic annual increase that disregards what may be other factors. There may be years you'd want to give more, there may be years you'd want to give less. It seems a little static to write that into the charter. The other stuff, I don't have enough knowledge to say, looking at this for 10 minutes, whether I agree or disagree. And maybe, if we are interested in providing some answers, maybe we should have a separate meeting and discuss this, in more detail and get the background for it. I just don't feel comfortable saying yes or no on something that I just don't have. And I know how much work has been put into it. And I would hate to put in 10 minutes of thought when people have devoted half a year or a year to this.
Well, I'm hearing some discomfort and I'm seeing some head nodding that maybe this is an abstention.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Patrick,
Well, it was an item that was discussed at the last month's board meeting. Peter has been reporting on the status. The links to the information is readily available for anybody who wanted context, wanted more background. It's all there. There's, as you said, there's been summaries when it was been brought up before. The background material had been assembled. It's there. So, but as someone who hasn't had the time to research all that, as we have with other items come before, I tend to look to the people who did spend the time and inquire of them of the balance of it as to, for downtown condo residents, as we are trying to maintain our property values and the life and health, do these things fit in that context? And from the dialogue that I've heard, the recommendations I've heard, for me, they seem to fit there. I have a bit of an issue is around number 2, around the salary thing. I understand that there's been looking into that. I don't have much context on that. But the other items in terms of the key thing is, do we make any changes in the structure of our commission and trying to get someone on the commission who has a little more longer term vision than just 1 year or 1 quarter or something? And I thought supporting that is a move in the right direction. Now, this is a long way from ever getting charters changed yet. I mean, there's going to be multiple public hearings and final changes, et cetera. But I think in terms of helping the commission to move forward, to begin to make some changes that gives us a better strategic view of progress, and especially as it impacts the downtown, which we're all about. I think it's worth supporting that, to get it in front of the commission. They see the residency, these changes, because there were some other more radical changes being proposed. And I think this has been moderated to a level that.
Well, it's going to go before the commission anyway.
Yeah.
Whether we vote on it or not.
This isn't a final. Please understand,
No.
as Ken does, that this is just recommendations from their advisory committee to them, and they can change it, rewrite it, reject it, accept it. There will be a hearing on this, or certainly a discussion by the commission that they'll be able to take additional public comment.
Peter, when will that be done?
Well, I thought it was being scheduled after this for March 24th, but I'd have to check on that date with the city clerk again. That may have changed. But I thought it was coming up on their agenda March 24th. Oh, 24th.
Peter, could you just explain to me in the first one, the 4-year term for the mayor who would have the same powers and duties as every other commissioner? I don't quite see where that adds to the historic, to institutional memory going for 4 years. If we had if the proposal was for a strong mayor, I might see the 4 years where he would have 4 years to get things done. But to have 4 years to be just like every other commissioner, I'm not sure I see the advantage to that.
Well, 2 things on that. First of all, the mayor would be elected at large. So that person, they would represent the entire city, as opposed to one member representing a district and focusing on that. The second part of that discussion, whether I agree with it or not, no difference. I voted for it, was that the rationale was consistency of message and maintaining the consistency of the city's vision in its interface with the news media and the public. The mayor would become the spokesman and the face of the city, and people would understand we have a mayor who does that. They do not, in my opinion, understand that they have a mayor now. And those that do understand it, understand that he's only there, he or she is only there for a year anyway. And somebody else comes in and has a different insight into the mission and what the city ought to be. So we thought for consistency, especially as we're going through periods of growth, that a four-year mayor would be able to do that and would be able to send the message from the commission, from the entire commission on a consistent basis to the entire city.
Well, I think that's a step in the right direction, but there are two major issues that we have a problem with in the city government, and that is leadership, the lack thereof, and accountability and the lack thereof. And this does not address those issues.
No, it doesn't, but the voter would be more informed with a four-year consistent message.
A PR person.
Well, essentially, that's a big part of the job of any mayor, being, as you know, as a commissioner, a big part of your job was being a PR person for the city.
But why change the charter if it's not going to give us what we really need?
Well, we changed the charter to change the date of the election when we thought we should do that at one point. We're changing and adding a mayor, and maybe the next time somebody will say, look, it's really working really well, maybe we ought to have a strong.
Look, here's our challenge. We're running over.
I know.
It looks like.
Don't get me going on this.
I'm not sensing.
I'd like to move that the DSCA direct its representative to abstain from this vote until further information is gained.
Second.
All in favor, Kathy?
Yeah, I would say.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
To the uninitiated, is there, if one wanders into the weeds to do a little research on what's behind these to get the thought process, is it in a reasonably cogent form that can be read in?
Well, what you could do is you could take the backup material from there there are the 7 articles where the changes were made. Not an easy process. You could go on the city website and under the Sarasota government, go down to agendas and meetings and scroll down at the bottom of that. There's the Charter Review Committee. And then you can look at the agenda and see where these items were discussed in each one of the 15 meetings.
Okay.
And you could either listen to the audio or you could try to read pages and pages of the minutes that were taken.
A lot of subtle.
The short answer is no, there's not an easy way to do it.
Anything else?
Peter, a quick question on the last one, the additional recommendation of CCNA. Do you have a sense, I mean, this obviously was talked about during your charter review process. Do you have a sense of where this stands with the Charter Review Board?
I will tell you, I think that we discussed this extensively and at one point narrowly voted that we should do it. And then in the final recommendations realized that maybe there are some problems there that need to be worked out, and that this charter is up for not the comprehensive plan. I get the Charter Review Committee did not support it, although there was a long, rational, heated polite discussions on why you should have an investigatory language in the charter.
Okay. Rosemary, some good news, really quickly. The park site is cleared, ready for irrigation. There's some permitting issues, but it's moving to have that sodded. Should be in the Herald Tribune tomorrow, and the Observer, so there's some press coverage of the progress. I think I'm quoted as saying we're halfway there or something like that. because we don't want the city to think that a piece of grass, snow is enough. We plan some celebratory events on it as part of beginning to activate it. So look forward to some news on that. On the streetscape efforts, the city just completed their survey. I hope you folks participated in that. They got about 1,050 responses. They closed off just at the end of February, and they're distilling that, and then they're to be coming back with some cross-section ideas for community engagement. So that's, both of those projects is moving ahead in Rosemary. That's the good news there. I guess, Kristen, so you want to, Jamie, kind of take it away here?
Sure.
You'll come up to the front so we can see you on the camera.
Here, come on up. I technically represent, am I in there? Hi.
Let's go up a little closer.
They can see me. Technically, I represent 5 of the platinum members, but I'm gonna go last. I know we have a gold member here, but I see we have some platinum members here. So let's start with Donna at Cadence. Donna, what's new with Cadence Bank?
Some new news, please. Yeah.
You're muted. You're muted.
Can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening now, everyone. The same things going on here that all the other banks are dealing with right now. The interest rates aren't the best, but we're doing what we can to help you invest your money, as well as the interest rate environment is starting to tick up on some of the loan side. So if any of the associations need any kind of capital improvements, now's the time to start talking to us to see what we can do to help you. And we send blessings to all of you. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Donna. I also see Patricia with Stabler Appraisal and Consulting. Patricia, there you
Hello, everyone. Good evening. How are you? My name is Patricia Stabler with Stabler Appraisal and Consulting. We are reserve study and insurance appraisal providers. A little bit of news. You probably all know that the insurance market is completely going haywire. There are a lot of increases in premium, but on top of this, we are also dealing with about 20% construction cost increases just for the last year. As you know, Florida Statute 718-111 requires an insurance appraisal every 3 years, and we do provide these updates. And currently, I push the button on the valuation software, and for 3 years, it is 25% straight. So the construction cost increase is tremendous. And on top of that, insurance premium increases. More and more insurance providers are out of the market, and it is very difficult. We had one case where the insurance carrier did not accept the appraisal, which was already 25% increased. They wanted more. They ran their own valuation and superseded the appraisal and forced the association to insure at the amount they found just. We also experience associations that is going more to the reserve side, where we, for example, reserved for a polyurethane coating of a flat roof. And the insurance said, we will not insure your building. If you do the polyurethane coating, you have to put on a new roof. That roof was only 15 years old. It would have had at least another 5 years of life. And the insurance decided they will not write the insurance unless the association replaces the roof entirely new. these are really important things I want you all to keep in mind and discuss with your reserve study provider, with your insurance appraiser provider, with your insurance agent, and discuss if your building could fall under one of these very harsh requirements. On a legal update, we currently have about 10 bills sitting in the pipeline in Tallahassee, partially coming from the House, partially coming from the Senate. If just a fraction of these bills become reality, associations will face incredible scrutiny in terms of building assessment reports. They are speaking about milestone reports, so-called building recertification reports. They might require reserve funding in a way we have not seen. One bill prohibits pooling and would force associations to fully fund. I only can wish that March 11 is the cutoff for this session, and I only hope that no law will be passed until March 11, so we have more time to educate the legislator to not pass these bills, which would be devastating for a lot of condo associations. Sorry for the long speech. I just wanted to fill you in on the most important.
Yes, there's a construction defect bill with, we've got Tannenbaum coming up next. We don't like that one, that's passed. The roofing one is passed. We don't like it. If you want a list of those, you can contact me and I can direct you to those bills that are going through legislation right now. Michelle, an update on Tannenbaum's Grove?
Well, we are no longer Tannenbaum's Grove. We are Tannenbaum, Knoll, and Kleinberg, and so our name has changed.
Okay.
Yeah. But the most important thing is that we are construction defect attorneys. Don't go at it alone. There's a lot of building going on in downtown Sarasota, a lot of turnovers happening, and we're here to support you and get you through that process. But I was also going to touch on, well, the other thing that we do is we do offer work on contingency basis based on the evaluation of your situation and your defect that's happening. But we work with the best teams out there in terms of engineering, accounting, and reserves, as like Patricia Stabler, who's on our panel, on our Zoom right now. The other thing that we're really promoting is to get ahead of legislation. So if you are in a building that's at a certain age and you know you're going to end up facing regulation because most likely it will pass, let's get ahead of it. We can help you. We're getting a lot of contracts reviews that are construction contracts from general counsel who are saying we are not construction experts and we really need your service to help us get our associations through these construction reviews. So please give us a call. We're here to support you and we'll come out and talk to you gratis at any time. And glad to be back.
Michelle, I believe, Jen, you are a gold member, correct, with Fifth Third Bank?
Yes, that is correct.
Go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for having me as a part of your organization. This is actually my first meeting where I've gotten to give a little talk about what we do here. So here at Fifth Third, we do specialize in HOA and COA lending. We have, as part of our team in this arena, we have a national property management consultant who is certified and an expert in the industry. She has an accreditation of the Manager of Community Association. We're very competitive with rates and terms. We do have local decision-making on these deals right in Boca. And we do offer association reserve accounts that do earn interest. So if I could ever be of any help in these areas, please give me a call. I'm right downtown in Sarasota at the 5 Points location. So I know that building's actually a member of this organization as well. So just very excited to be here and look forward to meeting y'all in person soon.
Thanks, Jen. I apologize. Samantha, I didn't see you there. Samantha would be Brown and Brown.
Yes, I apologize. I had to switch over to my phone, but
I'm with Brown and Brown. I'm on a team with Mike Angers. We specialize in condos. That's all we do every day, all day. Our team has over 160 associations in the area. And to piggyback on what Patricia said, we're seeing a lot of turbulence in the marketplace. Premiums are on the rise. Carriers are leaving the market. They're really tightening their guidelines. So now more than ever, you want to have, someone that can advise you and be in your corner. You want to have a strong agent that knows the markets. So if you have any questions about your program or any concerns, please reach out to me.
Hey, Samantha. Before I go, I'd like to have Serpro go ahead and give your deal.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brandon with Serpro. I know a few of you guys. There's also some I haven't seen up there before, so it's good to see new faces and meet new people. Serpro, we actually just got our 19th award in a row for the top #1 restoration franchise across the United States by Entrepreneur Magazine. So I'm really excited to hold on to that title. We specialize fire, water, mold remediation. We're moving into large loss sectors. A real quick thing is that it was New Year's Eve, just this past New Year's Eve, so about 2 months ago. I got a call about 10:30 at night for a 30-unit loss. I was there within 30 minutes, and I had a team of about 6 to 8 crews there within 4 hours. We were able to get all the water out within 10 hours. And we came in about 18% under budget for the job. And we opened the complex back up in about 11 days. So they were back to full functioning use within 11 days. Something that our power can do. So appreciate it.
And you got a hug from the chief of police.
I did get it. I got 2 hugs.
I have one more, thanks Brandon. I have one more blurb from Rebecca, COC. She was not able to be here. She's with the Lighthouse, one of our platinum members who has just been merged with Rio Manage. And she wanted to let you guys know that they have board member certification opportunities and other educational events coming up as well. So I will tell her to put those on our DSCA events calendar. Along those lines, I'm going to save time. You guys know who I represent. If you need a good service provider, come and take a card. One of those is here with me today, though, so I'd like to give her the spotlight. Terry with Sobotech. You know, Forge has changed, merged with Sobotech. We're really happy about that because it's enabled us to achieve more work with more employees and more jobs and all that, because after Surfside it was kind of crazy. Terry, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Sobotech, we offer complete structural analysis of the building. So if you had any water intrusion, if you had any issues, any concrete, stairs, poles, we can help you with any electrical issues that you may have. We'll come in and assess it and give you a full report.
Perfect. So we also have several events coming, and those should be on the events, the DSCA website. Board certification next week on the 9th. All of you board members are welcome to join us. Michael's on East. We'll be having a brunch there, and it's a 2-hour certification course. The legislation is probably going to move to make that you're going to have to do both. You can't just say that you read your documents. After July, you're probably going to have to read your documents, sign that you read your documents, and go to the course. So get a head start and come out on the 9th. We're kind of booked, I think, for March at Michael's on East, but April, we're talking about money, avoiding pitfalls at your association. And May, we've got a hurricane seminar with Ed McCrane. So you don't want to miss that. So just check out the calendar and you'll see all those events and information. Since I have 5 clients, I'm going to use 1 minute to talk about something exciting. I didn't forget to, or not decide which purse to bring. These are purses. It's a new passion of mine. This is New Hope Girls. They're out of the Dominican Republic, and they rescue girls from being trafficked at the local bars. Some of the moms have to basically take their girls to the brothels to provide money for food for their family. It's really bad. So New Hope Girls says that if you buy a bag, you save a girl's life. And they also provide jobs for the moms. They make these bags. They're at a decent wage, whereas a typical wage there would be 15 cents an hour. Anyways, on March 8th, They are teaming up with Vera Bradley. All of you ladies know who Vera Bradley is. Maybe the guys don't, unless you buy purses for your wives. They have fabric purses as well, a major brand. And they partnered with New Hope Girls for the last 4 years, and they have their own Vera Bradley collection. So on March 8th, which is International Women's Day, they'll be having a collaboration. They sold out in the first 4 hours last year. So you want to get on right at 9 o'clock. If you need the website, I can forward it to you. But we will also be at the Bayfront Community Center doing a fundraiser on April 22nd for New Hope Girls. So I'm really excited about that. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Kristen, one question for any of our vendors or even other members. I saw a notice about the Fannie Mae requirements for financing condo purchases in high-rise condos. Has anyone experienced that actually being requested for their condos or aware that being implemented?
Donna, do you want to speak on that? Or Jen? Oh, you're muted again. Yes.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I saw that information come up. I haven't had a chance to research through it. I'm more on the commercial side, but I have some emails that are coming over from our consumer side. I can try to get some answers out for you on that unless one of the other bankers has any information on it.
Kristen?
Yes.
I researched the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac requirements from an appraiser standpoint. Of course, I'm looking to banking as well, and I'm already teaching the whole topic. The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is limited to $647,000 or $643,000 and change. They are setting the limit every year new. So it only will affect units which are below $643,000 or $47,000. Everything above is a jumbo loan and will not be affected. So do the banks do it? They will have to, because banks usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, every banker on here, but banks usually don't know if their portfolio will be sold in a secondary market. So the lenders throughout will have to provide these provisions to loan on condominiums. It'll happen.
Can we make this a topic next month when a little bit more is known? Looks like there's some real interest. Okay. Okay. That's a wrap. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And then hopefully there aren't any member comments. We're running really quite late, so if you've got something burning to talk about, please, this is your turn. Otherwise, it's time for refreshments. Okay, thank you. Our next meeting is April 6th, and we'll presumably be doing a hybrid. Again, this seems to be technically working out pretty well. So with that, any final comments on board members? Otherwise, we'll call ourselves adjourned. Thank you.